Okay, so welcome to Fandom
and Wellness,
a podcast about the complex relationship between fandom and mental health.
We are not psychiatrists or psychologists. We are just fangirls with a vested interest in mental health. I'm Arkeida.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Danielle. This week we have a special guest on the show, Rose Del Vecchio of FanMail. Say hi, Rose.
Hello.
Basically, so Jenny is the other half of FanMail, and I know, as I discussed, I met FanMail through Jordan Dene, and then I met Rose, I believe, at Geek Girl Con.
Yeah.
Am I right with that? Yeah? Either you came to my booth or I came to your booth. I don't remember.
I snuck
But
up.
I think you snuck up. Good. I like the creeping.
Yeah.
How do you know Arkeida?
I don't know.
No, I think this is our first official meeting, to be honest. Like,
so cute.
I know of you. I know that you're really amazing and awesome.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't think I've ever
I don't even know, maybe we've been in the same space before, but not interacted when there's too many people. What's that thing, that Fangirls Night Out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you were probably in the we were probably inhabiting the same space and then never actually got introduced.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that sounds accurate.
Well, how do you two know each other, Rose and Jenny?
Would you like to?
Because I'd never heard that story.
A long, long time ago.
Oh my god, okay. So, way back in fall of 2010, we started at the same college on the same floor.
Yes.
And you were friends with my roommate.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a shitty group of friends, and then eventually made my way into a much better group of friends that included Jenny.
Jenny is pretty great, so I could understand that.
Yeah. But we've known each other pretty much since week one of college.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, and then Rose had an idea.
Yeah.
She had an idea for a group of superheroes to get together and for business. Oh, actually,
It wasn't called
FanMail then.
Oh my god.
What was it called?
The original name, which we make fun of all the time, was Trinket Box.
That's so cute.
That is really adorable.
It was, but then my brother kept suggesting it as the real name. And so we'd be coming up with stuff and he'd be like, oh my god, but what about Trinket Box? That would be really good. And I was like, Benjamin, stop.
Is it your business, Benjamin?
I know.
He's like, yes.
And originally we're gonna do a t-shirt company or something.
Yeah, monthly t-shirts.
Yeah, with artists coming in to do it was kind of
Which you kind of do. I mean, you have t-shirts in
Yeah.
your box sometimes.
yeah, but it's a little more than that now,
For
luckily.
sure.
But yeah, and then we started that how many years ago?
I don't know.
3 to 4 years ago.
No, we started talking in late 2015, I think. No.
I think it's
Sorry,
it was
late 2014.
14, yeah.
And then we basically waffled back and forth about hitting live
Right?
for a long time. And then finally, in May, I was like, F this. And I just let our website go live. And then we got 100 subscribers.
That's amazing.
Which was
By luck. It was totally by luck. I happened to use the correct hashtag. And so there's actually a woman whose name is Liz Cadman. She runs my subscription addiction. And I was just researching hashtags to use, saw that a lot of subscription boxes were using that hashtag, made our first post and was like, hey, check us out. We just opened.
Is that still a popular hashtag?
I mean, it's hers, I think. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I inadvertently used her hashtag for her website. And then she was kind enough, without even I don't think I reached out to her or anything. She just posted about us and said, here's a new box that popped up on my feed and here's what it looks like. And we still send her boxes. Every box we make, she gets.
Yeah, she's a very popular subscription box website.
Yeah.
So then I guess if you're starting a subscription box, use that hashtag.
Yeah, or reach out to Liz because she's really awesome.
Yeah, and now
I hope to someday meet her in person, but we've emailed a lot and talked on the phone and stuff. So
So now we're subscription box pros. So
Yes.
Obviously.
So do we want to go around and say our pronouns real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use she, her.
Yeah, me too as well. She and her.
And she and hers as well. And Rose is.
Also she and her.
All right. We got it.
Okay.
Well, you just told us a little bit about FanMail, which I failed to do last episode.
Yeah, it was the first episode. At the very end, I was like, oh, crap. I forgot to say anything about what we do or our companies or anything. And I was just like, duh, Little Petal does this and FanMail does this and Chic Geek does this. And
Yep. Whoops. All right. Anyway,
Oopsie.
well, why don't you tell us a little about yourself in general and your relationship with fandom? Yeah.
You want? Okay, yeah. So I lifelong fangirl. My dad actually has. You should consider interviewing him at some point.
Okay,
He actually
definitely.
runs a small business called Cinequest.com. He's been running it for over 20 years at this point. He actually started out collecting comic books back in the day and then selling them. He was one of the first people to even know about eBay. He went and visited them when they
That's
were in
crazy.
the basement. So he's been doing that for a long time, which means that I have grown up with fandom and pop culture just in my life. I really like Spider-Man. That was my first
Nice.
Spider-Man and Star Wars. And then in terms of who I am today, I work outside of FanMail as an assistant director of the Office for Wellness Promotion at a university outside of Philadelphia. And I have a dog and a partner. We live in Philadelphia. My FanMail's run out of New Hampshire. My parents are kind enough to house the main bulk of our operations. And I do a lot of traveling and I do a lot of saying hi to people and warming my way into people's hearts. I worked on Jordan for a while. And that's a lot of what I do.
I like that you winked when you said that.
I really like Jordan. I remember.
Does anyone not really like Jordan? I don't think that's a thing.
The
No.
the literal definition of a Hufflepuff. So yeah.
And as comfortable as you are talking about mental health, what would you say your relationship with mental health is?
It's something I think about every day, right? So mental. So one, I work a lot in wellness, and so I do a lot of talking about different aspects of mental health for my own personal mental health. I don't think I knew it for a really long time, but I struggle with anxiety. I'm lucky enough to have a pretty manageable amount of anxiety, but I've had times in my life where it's been pretty overwhelming. I moved to Philadelphia without a job, and that was probably the lowest my mental health has been. And my anxiety made it incredibly difficult to live in a big city without feeling like I could only go 10 steps outside my door. I didn't know where I was going. I was going to get lost, which is funny with technology. Obviously, I wasn't going to get lost, but that didn't stop my brain from making it feel like I was going to get lost. And I think right now I'm currently in a much better headspace and in therapy and all of that good stuff, which took me a
Yay, therapy.
Yeah. I have a strong advocate for everybody who can afford therapy to go and find a way to get therapy.
Yeah. And there are clinics that offer it for lower cost or even free, depending on what your insurance is.
Yeah.
Or lack of insurances.
Exactly.
Yeah, lack of insurance.
Yeah, if anyone is curious about what it's...
I want us to get a Talkspace sponsorship.
There you go. There you go.
That's number one goal.
Yeah. My therapist is actually out of network for my health insurance, and so I'm also happy to talk to anybody about what that process is like. But it's pretty easy once you have a person you like to talk to them about it. But
is that more expensive?
It means I pay out of pocket and then get reimbursed by my insurance.
Oh,
but
that's
it was
not bad.
hard to find out. They have this number that insurance is called the maximum amount that they'll cover. And basically each different insurance gets to decide what they think the max for a session of therapy is.
Right.
And so they don't tell you what that number is.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
What?
They won't tell you.
until after the session?
It's the insurance providers won't necessarily have it. They just tell you that they have a maximum, and you might be able to convince a customer service person to give you a ballpark, but like I could not get a specific number from my insurance. And so my provider and I decided that we would cap it at $100 a session in the hopes that I would get 80% of that back, right? And so we had to test it. We had to test the system, submit the claim. I had to wait
terrifying
30 business days or whatever to find out if that was going to be what they
What?
So did you wait 30 business days before having a second session?
No, I go to therapy every week. And so she was essentially just like, we'll wait and see. And then if I have to give you money back, I'll give you money back. You know what I mean? So she was really good at.
Good for you for taking that initiative to like take care of yourself.
Yeah. Self-care is important.
But it's a tough system to navigate. I hate it.
Thank you for telling us about that process.
Of course.
We like to ask, well, I'd say we like to ask our guests. You're our first guest. We will be asking our guests. And I asked Jenny and Arkeida like why they wanted to do this podcast with me. So why were you interested in coming on our podcast? I mean, you obviously talked about
because it's
your love of mental health and everything.
And it's wellness.
No, it's literally you.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, it's the intersection that I live in every day, and I'm lucky enough that I get to do wellness work in a way that, like, I have a supervisor who is obsessed with Harry Potter, but also like understands how we can interact with people and talk about mental health using pop culture. And so when Jenny said that y'all were starting this, I was really pumped about it because it's like the perfect topic, because fandom just helps facilitate a lot of conversations I don't think we would normally have, or not as easily anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
It's really great. So we also we talked about this a little in the last episode about like the characters we most identify with. Is there a character that you identify with? And
I know you said you love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I do love Spider-Man. I do not think I'm anything like Peter Parker, though, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Not that it's a bad thing, but like
I think the character, so they're like two different ways I interpreted this. So I actually asked my partner about this because I was like, I don't know that there's like a specific character that I identify with. And she was like, well, you really like Steve Harrington. And I was like, okay, but I really like Steve Harrington because he's like a perfect representation about how something can be seemingly toxic masculinity, and and it actually turns out that he's the epitome of like a healthier version of masculinity. But in terms of like personally who I identify with, I think I identify most with Merlin.
Wow.
Like throwback.
Oh my gosh, throw it all the way back.
Yeah, just because there's a lot of like whether or not the creators intended, there's a queer analogy there for queerness and magic, and the connection and intersectionality of having to hide part of yourself, a pretty integral part of yourself. And so I think Merlin will always hold a special place in my heart for that, because, oh my God, that show is so gay. But like gay in all the ways, right? So like Morgana and, Guinevere. And so like, I think that show for me really represented like a healthier, like, you could see like that combined with fandom, right? I wouldn't just take Merlin as a character, but also Merlin through fanfic, through people's interpretations, and all of that has really, I think, impacted my own personal journey.
Oh, I can't wait for your dissertation on it.
I would love to. I don't know if I could ever get anyone to sign off on that dissertation, but
there's a lot of. I feel like nowadays there's more
that's
fandom
true.
and
that's true.
Mental health, especially, and queerness, So, did I tell you that I chose Clark Kent from
Did
Smallville?
You? From Smallville. Oh,
yeah,
specifically.
No, that's a good interpretation of Clark.
Yeah, because a lot of people grew up with him and watching him on TV.
Yeah, I've been rewatching the series. It's a lot. So many episodes.
Yeah. I'm rewatching Psych right now, but I don't think I would identify with either. I sometimes wish I had different aspects of them, but oh my God, Sean Spencer's kind of a jerk. So, and if an actual human did what he did, I would hate him.
He's got that confidence that is unimaginable,
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, that's a great answer. I love Merlin too.
Thank you.
So just going back to your job as a health educator / assistant director. This doesn't sound so great.
I know,
Being
sounds
an
so professional.
assistant director. I've heard you talk a little bit about holistic wellness before, but what does holistic wellness mean to you?
Yeah. I think wellness is everything. So actually our wellness philosophy for my department covers 10 different dimensions of wellness. I would try to name them all, but I'm a little worried I'm going to miss them, but I can give it a shot if you want. But essentially,
maybe the most important ones.
Well, the ones that we talk about the most: physical health, mental health, social wellness, environmental wellness, financial wellness, and sexual wellness.
Okay.
And then there's also like identity or multicultural wellness, which I find is an incredibly important part of my work. And so when we talk about wellness, and specifically in the university setting, it's admitting that everything that we do, regardless like who we are, impacts our abilities to be like academically well at university. And so if you are struggling with finances, or if you are struggling with some part of your identity, or if you are struggling with some other aspect of like not having a home to go to, that's going to impact your grades, right? And so like recognizing that they're all interconnected, and that's sort of like holistic wellness is recognizing that if one part of your life is really impacting you, then it's going to be impacting other parts.
Nice. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yes. I don't know if there's another part of the question.
No, I mean that's great. And how do you incorporate fandom into your role as a health educator?
Yeah, so it's doing presentations that have to do with Harry Potter.
Wait, what is your Hogwarts house? We're not talking about ours until our Harry Potter episode, but I want to know what yours is.
I am a Ravenclaw.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was obvious.
But I am a Ravenclaw. I did go through a little crises because Pottermore sorted me into Hufflepuff, and so for a while I tried to live as a Hufflepuff.
Whatever.
It didn't work out. It just didn't work out.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so I mean, in terms of incorporating fandom, so I do have my own office space, and it is filled with artwork from a lot of my favorite people in the fandom world. So I've got Jen Bartel represented in there. I've got a few others, and I've got a bunch of stuff from FanMail as well, because we've done a lot of artwork. So part of that is creating an office that people can kind of look around when they're uncomfortable and maybe see something that they would want to talk to me about instead of what we're supposed to be talking about, which is a good way to get people to open up. So they know that I might like something that they like or something similar.
Right.
And then the second part is really with intentional programming. So not all of my programs revolve around pop culture as much as I would like, but I have done, leadership styles in your Hogwarts house, or, if you're getting ready to go home over break, creating a parallel between Harry going away from Hogwarts and back to Privet Drive, and like how can you
That's amazing.
yourself mental health wise and be ready to compromise and know that things have changed after your first college semester.
Yeah.
I feel like Harry needed you.
Yeah.
You were lacking in his life.
But he ends up being a pretty good representation of how I would love people to think a little more intentionally prior to them going home after being away for a little while.
So how many prints do you pick up at every convention? Because I know that every convention I do, I leave with like way too many.
Too many. It's one of those things that my partner wishes I bought less of, but their art is typically easier to transport than a lot of other things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at your walls right now.
Yeah, this is actually just a small representation of what I have in my office is like way more filled. But I don't know. It's one of those things that like I would get mad at myself, but I love talking to someone about their work. I love that, a lot of artists at smaller shows, they usually have like $1, something that's like less than $5, right? And so something small, some way that I can still give them money without like breaking the bank, right? And so for me, it's like an important aspect of like making that connection and proving to them that I am invested in them as a human and also in their financial wellness, right? And so if I can give them $5, if I can give them, more than that, I will. But
conventions are very expensive to do.
Yes, yeah. And having been on the other side of that, knowing that like anything helps. And so it's a good connecting point, but also like I don't tend to, I've noticed that like especially now that I have so much artwork, I'm collecting certain things, and I like that too. So I've started to collect like women characters that I really identify with, or women characters from artists that I really, really appreciate their interpretations. So I have a lot of Jubilee in my collection right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, from all different artists. And so that's been a lot of fun. So yeah,
That's
I don't
great.
know. I don't want to ever stop, but I also
No.
don't know that I'll ever be able to display all of it.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, my rule of thumb is as long as I can display it, I can keep buying it. And so that's why I bought a house, just so I could display artwork.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I still haven't hung any of my artwork that I've had for like the last 5 years of cons.
You have to hang it. It'll make your life, your daily life, feel so much better.
Yeah, I need to.
Like I had all of my artwork not hung when I was living in Brooklyn until like maybe the last like the second to last year, and I finally hung everything up, and I was like, oh my god, I finally like being here.
Well, yeah, and it's like a reminder of mememories too.
Yeah,
I like
surround yourself with things you love.
Yeah,
that
like you guys.
Me that.
Oh,
you should get pictures.
why?
You should actually do like, print out your little profile photo and each hang it up. That would be so freaking cute, guys.
Oh, that is a really cute photo. Oh my gosh, I miss that. I miss that.
Dragon Gum?
Yeah, no, that was like a really good weekend. That was my first year going, and
Same.
having you all there was like what kind of made it better for me, because I was really, really scared and nervous like the entire time, like going down. I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, my husband was so happy that you two were there. He's like, you get to hang out with Jenny and Arkeida? I was like, yeah. He's like, good. I love them.
Oh, we love him too.
He said you're positive influences on my life.
Yeah, you should go too, Rose.
Oh yeah.
Asked me to go next year,
You
so
should
we'll
go.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
So much
Are you ever gonna try to get a booth or a table? I get a table, not a booth. It's less expensive.
Yeah, I mean it's so hard. So a lot of what we do for FanMail and assessing our finances and stuff, it's usually that cons aren't worth it for us to go as vendors because we have to travel there.
Oh, I know.
So that's probably not, because if it's going to be my first year, I don't know that necessarily that I want to be vending anyway, because that's like an added dimension of worrying about finances all weekend.
Right.
So
if you just want to have fun, we wouldn't want to vend.
Yeah. So we'll see. It depends. It also depends on like I've split booths with Jordan too. So she feels like she's got some space to share, then we might be able to do that. So all future plans, if Jordan listens to this, you do not have to split a booth with me.
Oh my god.
Suggestion.
So far, both episodes, we've talked about Jordan quite a lot. I have a
That's hysterical. I'm sure she appreciates it.
But for anyone who doesn't know, check out Jordan Danae, because
I can't decide if we should have her on immediately or never. Like to just like keep the
we now know she exists within our realm.
keep the mystery alive.
Like, is Jordan actually a real human? Who knows?
She's just an urban legend, actually.
Yeah. So Rose, you seem to have quite a history with fandom, growing up with pop culture with your father and all the prints you collected. But like, do you mind delving into it some more and talking to us about like how fandom helps you relieve your anxiety?
Yeah. I don't know what my life would be like without it, right? And so that's one thing that I will acknowledge is that I don't remember a time when I wasn't obsessed with something. And that's something being always connected to pop culture. So being obsessed with Star Wars when I was really, really young, and then being obsessed with Spider-Man. Luckily, my brother was also obsessed with Spider-Man, which really helped. But I think our history, like my history with fandom, is really that I see it as a hobby for sure, but also just like life force in a lot of ways. And so
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And even like fandoms that you wouldn't typically think about. So in Chinese culture, there's the Monkey King, and the Monkey King travels around with his companions, and he is essentially a superhero. I mean, he really does have superpowers, and he's mischievous. And I was born in the year of the monkey, so I strongly identified with him as well. And so like that was also quote unquote fandom, right? And so being a fangirl of that, if I see a creator who's created a Monkey King print at a convention, I'm buying it.
That's amazing.
Like it's showed up a lot more in the last couple of years, which has been even more exciting. And then through growing up, you find different things that help you in certain times, right? And so prior to Harry Potter, which is hard to believe that there was a time before Harry Potter, I really liked his Dark Materials series. Didn't understand, nearly as much as I do now, the grappling with religion and the church, but it's very fascinating to me that that was and continues to be one of my favorite books. And so the way it helps with my mental health is I think that I've always been an introvert. I've always connected with people first in fandom. And, it's one of those things that I hope to continue to find things. I was obsessed with Merlin for a really long time. So it was like Harry Potter, Merlin, Doctor Who. I mean, Doctor Who was my jam for a while, and so I think there's always been something that has helped me filter the world a little bit in times when I have been really, really stressed out. And so I think that really helps. Yeah, I think I answered the question.
I often think about whether fandom helps, but also whether you say filter the world, but do you think it's a little bit of filtering, a little bit of avoiding at all?
I don't tend to do a lot of avoiding unless it's...
Well, that's healthy.
Well, and I think
that's a lot healthier than me.
So I acknowledge that I'm a procrastinator, right. But I don't often think. I think I've changed. I think I've changed and learned that shutting my brain off for a little while and playing a video game instead of doing my work isn't a bad thing.
Right.
And so I think I've just learned to reframe it. And as long as I'm still getting my stuff done, as long as I'm still being productive, and as long as I am not just doing the video games, I see that as there is a line. And I often cite my partner in this too, right? So I was somebody who binge watched a lot of television in college,
Netflix.
Yeah. My partner likes to watch one episode of something during dinner and then shut it off.
I don't understand.
That's amazing. I try to do that. I try very hard to be like, lunch break, here we go. Dinner break, here we go.
Right. She does it very successfully, and of course she still binges stuff. She binged the last season of Daredevil in a day. So I'm not saying exclusively she does that, but we watch one episode of Psych with dinner every night, and then if we have time, on a Friday night, I'll request a second episode, and then because we watch it together, she goes, all right, I think I can do one, or I'm gonna go play video games, why don't you watch a second one? And so it has given me structure. So I can't say that I did it myself.
That's okay.
It doesn't matter.
For a really long time. So it's definitely created a schedule for me.
It's okay to lean on other people.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's important actually.
As long as they know you're leaning on them.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Before I was a business owner, when I would go to conventions, my favorite thing was going to panels. Now as a business owner, I never get to do that anymore. So my favorite thing is just when my customers are visiting me so I can give them hugs and take funny photos with them. Do you have a favorite thing about conventions? And is it different when you're vending versus when you're just hanging out?
Jenny can speak to this. I don't know how to just be an attendee.
Yeah.
I can't do it either. Now I have to have a safe space behind my booth, otherwise my anxiety goes absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. And in that same vein, right? I don't know that I've actually, until the last couple of years, ever gone to a convention and not been vending, at least on behalf of my dad's business.
Same.
So literally,
but not your dad's business. I have not vended for your dad yet.
My dad was so funny. He was saying that he went onto someone's website the other day and realized that he recognized everybody. And I was like, yeah.
Is it mine?
Maybe. But it's all of my friends.
I was like, is it mine? Because it's a lot of you.
Right, exactly. But he was like, whoa, I've never gone to a website and realized I recognized 90% of the people modeling the stuff. And
or Jordan.
Yeah. I don't think he told me what it was, but he mentioned it, and I thought that was funny. So, so we've been, I've been an exhibitor more often than I've been an attendee. And so even when I'm just an attendee, their second year of FanMail was when I was going to things more as an attendee, and that's when I say I wormed my way into Jordan's heart, I literally didn't know what to do with myself, and so I would stand near her booth.
Yeah, I have a lot of customers who do that. One of my favorites actually did it so much that she learned like the whole spiel that I give, because like my dresses is like it's a lot of talking, so she like learned the whole spiel and would just start giving it to people when they would come up to give our voices a break, because like me and my booth queen Leanna would always lose our voices. So she would just give it to them, and I finally was just like, do you just like want a job? Do you just like want to work for me? And so now I bring her to conventions with me. Her name's Lisette. She rules.
Oh, she's awesome.
Yeah, but I have tons of girls who do that too, because it's like when you find another like geek girl company that you relate to, it just helps so much with your social anxiety. I feel like
kind of like what I did before I officially met you, and just like went to your booth.
Just to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's good. I mean, I think it's a really good way to get to know people. And, I think one of the things that came up when you were talking in my head, now I've forgotten it. So maybe it doesn't, not as relevant, but I just think there's something to be said also, like it's a lot easier for me to talk up a vendor that I really like than it is for them to sell their own shit. And so if I can help them, it's always hard to talk about yourself.
Yeah.
And so I would much prefer to be there and be like, you should check out this rad person's stuff. And make it easier on them than, not help them, right?
Yeah,
it's like a natural fit.
I like now I often don't get like I personally am not usually the one who gives the spiel to new customers. I'm usually talking to like just like repeat people who come up who already own my dresses, because I'm like, I feel awkward. I don't want to keep doing this. I'd rather talk to the people who already know what's going on. I was like, Leanna and Lisette can handle that. They're gonna
Which is like a relief, right?
Yes, it Awesome Con last year. I had a third amazing person helping me, and yeah, like I felt like I didn't have to do anything other than talk to people who already own dresses.
That's awesome.
I just got to hang out the whole time at my booth. I was like, this rules. Goals indeed. Yeah, it was very good.
So, did we talk about how you keep your anxiety down and your mental health in check when you're at conventions?
I don't think we have talked about that. I think a lot of it I've actually learned about in the last couple of years. So like I said, because I was an exhibitor for so long, there's a switch. So I'm an introvert. And there's a switch I turn on when I'm at conventions, and Jenny and I have discussed this in depth. There's a switch that I turn on where I become this person who can talk to anybody. And part of that is having to sell the stuff that we have at the booth. And part of that is, acknowledging that this world is not set up for an introvert exhibitor who's just chilling at the booth and not talking to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So I have had many a conversation with people about fandoms I do not care about, but I am incredibly excited about. I know those feelings. And it's managing it, right? So it's managing and acknowledging that at the end of the convention weekend, I'm probably not going to want to give hugs. I'm probably not going to want to touch anybody. I just want to go home and like shut down for a couple of days. And so it's acknowledging that the person I am at conventions, while she is a part of me, she's a different part of me that kind of only comes out at conventions or similar functions. And that's been, when I'm just as an attendee, that's been really hard for me because that switch hasn't been as easy to find when you're not behind a booth. And so I think that the way I've coped with that is finding people that I like who I can then say, hey, need to go to the bathroom, I'll cover your booth for a while, like getting to that level to be like, okay,
hey, we need people like you.
Yeah.
And you need people like you at your booth. Anyone listening?
Yeah. No, I actually really like San Diego Comic-Con is one of our most hectic conventions. And I actually really like that balance of, one, I'm trapped, quote unquote, trapped in my booth because there's not a lot of space and I can't really leave. But it also like is really nice to find somebody who you're talking to, a lot of people that you don't know, and then suddenly they're like almost like out of the crowd, a familiar face shows up, and you're like, I like this person. And I think it's really interesting. Like I feel like friendships are formed faster in convention settings too.
Yes.
Like this is a familiar face, let me give you a hug. Whereas like I maybe wouldn't have hugged you in real life until way later, but like there's just something about like being like, oh my gosh, I feel connected to you in this moment. You are calming me in this moment, and let me acknowledge that in a very outward way.
Yeah, there's something to be said about friendships forged in high stress situations.
Yeah, for sure. And conventions are high stress situations.
Yeah. I feel like at the same time you understand that conventions are high stress, but it's also kind of a safe space for you because you're around your people and the people that kind of understand what you may or may not be dealing with, because they also could be dealing with the same thing, you know?
I think that's a more recent thing for me. I don't have experienced that before.
I think like with more geek girl companies coming up, it's helping more women and non-binary people feel safer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, oh God, the number of conventions I've been at where it's just been people I don't identify with, right, but liked the same things. I've talked to many a guy about Doctor Who, but never felt like we really got in depth, right? But I was so excited to be talking to somebody about Doctor Who at a time when no one else in my life was doing that. So I acknowledge the role that they played, but I'm really happy now that I'm getting more interaction and more like a deeper level of like.
Yeah, because like geek girls have always existed. It's just they haven't felt comfortable going to those spaces before.
Yeah, now it's like
now it's a fucking revolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that after conventions you need to kind of like recharge for a bit. I know that after I vend, I like have to just like kind of sleep for like 3 days straight because I'm so like worn out, because I'm not like, I'm a very, very social person when I am in public, but otherwise I do not leave my house ever. So like after conventions, I just need to totally zone out and like be alone, or like with my husband and dogs. But is that the same for you guys? Yeah, they're cuddle buddies. They don't count. Is that the same for you guys? And Arkeida, is that the same for you as someone who just cosplays at conventions?
Yes, absolutely. After I'm a very social person at conventions, even though I kind of tend to be more of a solo con goer. Like I'll go with a group and then separate, but just being around so many people,
it's a lot,
and having to interact with so many people in such a short span of time, by the end of it I'm just like, I can't fathom the thought of having any more human interaction, and I kind of do go into this shutdown mode where I probably won't talk to anyone for
I always wonder if that's like a universal thing or if it's just me. So
no, it absolutely is. And as a cosplayer, sometimes where it's like, it's one of those days where every 5 feet you can't even get to one end of a building because someone's like, I want your photo, and you're just like, by the end of that I'm like, I don't want anybody around me. Like I just want to be in a corner and have hot chocolate and be left alone.
That sounds great.
Yeah, is that so that's the same for you guys, Rose and Jenny?
Yeah.
So Rose and Jenny are together at one house, and me and Arkeida are at separate houses. So sometimes I'm just saying Rose and Jenny because they're sitting next to each other. You guys can't see it, but I can see it.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think in terms of that shutdown, yes. Yeah. So I try to make sure that on a day, so I don't typically have days off between when I'm traveling back to get to Philly and working like the next day. You only have so much time off at a job, you know? And so I try to make sure that at least my morning the next day is not filled with any meetings. And so that way I don't have to jump right in. I can spend a little bit of time with my door closed, staring off into space a little bit before I really hop back into, and I'll do my email, because my email for me is something that's like very organizational. And so when I get to work, I'm like, at least if I look at my email, I'm still being productive, but I don't have to interact with anybody. And so it's finding that like in between space. And then usually I'll try not to hang out with anyone at night for like a while.
Oh God, yeah. Sorry, not leaving the house.
Oh, you wanted to see me? No.
You can come here.
Yeah, exactly.
Jenny, was it different after just like attending Dragon Con versus when you vend?
I obviously prefer to attend conventions as an attendee just because it's just more fun, and I don't need to have social interaction if I don't want to, as opposed to a vendor who has to do it all day.
We're the opposite experience. I would much rather be an exhibitor.
I would much rather be an exhibitor.
Yeah.
I can't go as an attendee. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, where is my place? What am I doing?
Going for long enough as an attendee and more often as an attendee that I'm more used to that. And yeah, I don't need to be a vendor because I like to experience I do like the panels, and I like to experience all the things that you don't get to experience as a vendor necessarily.
What was it like vending on your own this year for the first time?
It was okay. I don't know if you find yourselves doing that thing where you literally put on a different face as soon as they turn around, you take it off.
I go under my table. I go under my table to frown for like a second.
What?
Because I'm not normally a social person, but when I'm in public, I am, and I am naturally. But it's just like your face starts hurting after a while if you're smiling for 4 days straight for like 12 hours a day. Like your face starts hurting, literally. So I just go under the table and I just frown to make my face not hurt. And I come back up and I'm like, okay, like, because I love being there and I love talking to everyone, but your face starts hurting if you're smiling that much. I don't know.
Picture you with a frown on your face under a table, and it's kind of the cutest thing in my head.
Hey, you have to do what you have to do.
Yes, you do. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
But so is your recharge different though, Jenny, if you're attending versus if you're vending?
I would say that I do need. You're still in a convention center all day for 4 days straight or whatever. So I still feel like I need a lot of time to recharge from either one. But I think in the same way as Rose said, I don't really want to talk to anybody for a while, especially after being a vendor.
Yeah.
I think I actually find that I need more recharge time after being an attendee, and maybe it's because it's not a typical experience for me and it's more draining. But I think that when I'm an attendee, I find that my bounce back time is a lot longer. And I find myself getting a little bit more overwhelmed as an attendee just in crowds. And so
I see that.
So I went to New York Comic Con.
No.
A couple of years ago. I know. As an attendee, I think that was maybe the first one I had that wasn't a really small convention that I was an attendee. And that really, really sucked. And I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go to New York Comic Con ever again because I was like, these crowds suck.
Yeah.
I've gone back every year since.
But
I still have mixed emotions about it.
I think there's also...
If you're going to go on Thursday.
Well, the problem is I can't always get off on Thursday, so I'm usually there Saturday, Sunday. So it's just one of those things that like balance. And I've had since finding my crew and a lot of people I know, I met because they live in New York City and they vend there because it's the local show, and so that has helped a lot too to know that I will see people that I know that I like. But that first year, it was just like I knew Jenny, and I think that was it. And I mean,
that's all you need.
I mean,
you only need Jenny. Everyone else is just like an add-on. Like
Jenny likes to disappear on me at conventions.
Hey,
in crowds, it's very confusing.
I just walk very fast. And I have a mission. I don't know what my mission is.
No, I can attest to this. You do that.
Yeah, like when we met Capaldi, she just sprinted away.
It's a thing to know.
She's like, "Oh my God, that's Peter Capaldi. You should get a photo." So I turned around and asked for a photo, and I turned back around and I was like, Jenny, where the hell did you just go? She was a block ahead of us because she just sprinted away.
There was miscommunication, and I was nervous.
I was like, did you mean you just want me to take a photo with him?
I've lost you in crowds many a time. And I think it's something that I've actually learned to walk in crowds a little bit better. But I was like, whoa, Jenny, I don't walk like you do. Where did you go?
I walk fast, and I had never seen anybody walk that fast.
Look, I'm just me. I'm just the way I am.
Yes. And I love it. I love every moment of it. Every molecule of it. It being you.
All right. So like one question that I have. So like in times of high stress and anxiety, I like to say to myself, maximum effort. For For
Oh my
anyone.
god.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. My dirty.
Don't ever
thing-
apologize.
That's great.
I'm sorry.
Not for your beautiful, wonderful feelings, at least. Only if you're being a jerk. But you're never a jerk because you're Arkeida.
Oh, thank you. And yes, it is a Deadpool phrase, but I say that because when I'm feeling especially stressed or down, I like to think to myself, am I giving this the best I can? And even if it's not the best that I can, is it the best that I can do at this moment? And then I revisit it. But like that's kind of what gets me through a lot of really high stress. But is there like a phrase that you use that you say to yourself that's kind of a mantra that gets you through things?
That's a tough question.
I find that phrases like maximum effort are very good at breaking you kind of out of a
Yes.
funk.
Yeah.
If I
Works for me.
screamed maximum effort and then like pushed myself off the bed, I feel like that.
That's how I get up.
What's
in the
that?
morning.
What's that? I like to wake up to that Shia LaBeouf video of him yelling, "Do it, just do it."
I don't know that I have a specific thing, but in the same vein, it's not pop culture related, but like my partner and I have devised, because I tend to have more inertia, I think, because there's this book called The Four Tendencies. I recommend it for anyone who really likes personality stuff. It has taught me a lot about things that I wouldn't have thought about in other personality traits, but there are 4 different personalities, and I can only remember 2 of them right now. So my partner is an upholder. So that's somebody who finds it very easy to make a decision and then stick to it.
What?
Like make a goal and then make that goal like immediately, versus like I am somebody who
My husband does that.
a little bit more on that. And so because I have figured out that she's an upholder. Will you open that door and let him out?
Yeah. Give me a second.
Sorry, someone's vacuuming and he does not like that.
Beforehand, before we started the podcast, Rose was like, "My dog never barks," and I was like, "Let's squeeze him. I want him to bark." My dogs bark a lot, and I don't care.
Definitely just proved me wrong. He very rarely barks that loud, so that's kind of fun. He usually like grumbles a little bit and like gets really grumpy. But she's an upholder, so because she's an upholder, it's very easy for her to make a decision like, "Hey, I'm going to go wash the dishes before bed," and then actually go wash the dishes before bed. If I say that, there's like a 50% chance I won't do it. Sometimes more than that. And so I think what we've learned is that if I count down, and in a similar way, I will go 3, 2, 1, and then at 1 I have to get up from where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
And that works. Not every time, but it works often enough. And then one of the things that my therapist and I talk about is, okay, so I'm somebody who likes to do dishes once I get started, but I don't get started very often. And so she says like, okay, why don't you just make a pact that you're going to do 3 dishes a day? And what we find is that like, if I do 3 dishes a day, I'm actually going to do more than 3 dishes a day, right? So I'm going to actually get all the dishes done. But I can also stop at 3. So it's giving yourself permission to stop at whatever number you've set. So if I'm only going to do 3 minutes of exercise, I am more than welcome to stop after 3 minutes. If I'm only going to wash 3 dishes after I've done my 3 dishes, I can walk away. And it's a really good strategy for me to face that inertia a little bit that I get when I just really want to like chill and not do anything. But I also advocate for chilling and not doing anything at appropriate levels.
I think it's easiest to do your dishes if you do them as you're cooking.
Yeah.
That's what I usually tell people to do. And I don't know, most people I've told to do, or like advised to do that. And once they start doing it, it becomes easier for them.
No,
because then when you're done cooking, there's no dishes other than the one that you're eating with.
Yes. And that is the smartest strategy. I'll let you know if I ever accomplish that.
I try that, but sometimes I just don't get to do that. And I also bake a lot.
That's okay.
It'll just be like 5 million bowls in the sink.
I mean, you can't always do it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No.
Yeah.
So your dog just barked, and I know that your dog is a therapy dog, so I need to hear about this. Why did you decide to do that? Has it helped you? Do you get to bring him to work? What was the process like? I need to know these things.
Yeah. So I found my dog on the street in May of 2017.
Baby angel.
Well, how long? 2017, because I graduated in 2016.
Wow.
So May 2017, I had actually just moved into this apartment. We actually had not unpacked everything. We needed curtains. And so we went to get curtains. And on our way back, there was this little dude by himself having an adventure crossing the street. And so we pulled over and watched him for a few minutes and tried to find his owner and all of that. And no one came forward. So now he's my dog. But from day one, he's about, we estimate about 7 or 8 years old, judging by what that says. So he's fully grown. He's only 12 pounds, but he has been our rock through a lot of stuff, right? And I know Danielle has talked a lot about her dog, and if she hasn't on the podcast, I definitely recommend you do.
I really haven't. I really haven't talked about my dog, my oldest dog, or my puppies yet. They have their own Instagram.
But... also has his own Instagram.
Yeah, it's because he has a great name.
Yeah. So we found him on the street, and he's always been chill, and he's been pretty well trained. But I started thinking about ways in which I like to make things that in my life that I like work together, right? And so part of that was I work at a college campus. Therapy dogs are very popular on college campuses, particularly around finals. And we had one on campus, but I thought, well, maybe we could use another one. And it was part selfish, part wanting to have something use. It is both and, right? So it's recognizing that what he does for me is something that he could do for other people. And so I was going to go get him obedience trained anyway, because even though he knew like sit and lay down, he wasn't too good on the other stuff. And in fact and point, like it just gave me structure in order to like work with him. So I actually took him all the way through to therapy dog. And then we took the test in September of 2018. So just a couple months ago, and passed with flying colors. So there's a temperament test where basically your dog has to be okay with a lot of different things, people tugging on ears, paws, tails, basically all these different tests to show that they just wouldn't have any aggression towards people or other animals. And so that's part one of the test. And then part two is obedience in terms of who the trainer is and who his handler is. And so I had to pass that part of the test essentially. And so he had to leave treats on the ground. He had to, not interact with another dog if they were in the same space. I can't think of other things, but they drop something really loud and they can like react and like look at it, but they can't get like overstimulated. And so there is a whole training process, but honestly, he made it really easy for me. I'm not going to lie. So he is an officially trained therapy dog now. We are certified. We are a handler dog team, and he is allowed. So I have to do 6 events for the organization that I am certified with. So we did one at a middle school a couple weeks ago. That was great. Middle schools are a lot. They're just a lot. They just are very excited. But I got to hear a lot about, their own dogs and their own struggles and stuff like that. Because what I find is that if you have a therapy dog, people will actually talk to you way more while they're petting the dog. And so hopefully my goal is to have him on campus at least once a week with me in sessions, possibly that I have with students. And if not, in like small group settings, because I think he actually does a lot better with small groups because he's such a tiny dog. So
right.
I highly recommend that if you think your dog has the temperament for it, looking into it, because it brings me a lot of joy. And I think he really loves knowing when he's working and that he's working and interacting with people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than getting to hang out with your dog all day.
Yes.
And also, like, dogs like working. They like pleasing their owner. They like having a thing to do.
Yeah. Everybody who's ever met Lego says he's obsessed with me, but I'm like, no, it's just because he really likes what he's doing, so he wants to know who's doing it right.
Yeah, like if your dog is being like out of control, it's likely that he's bored and wants to be doing something. Like, Ben, my husband Ben is a high school teacher, and our puppies are like 5 months old. Oh my God. So we're trying to get the principal to agree to letting him like bring them in the day before winter break to like do a little puppy party.
Okay.
Oh my gosh! I want to go back. I was like, wow.
I know. I was like, that exists. Companies exist that just bring puppies to companies.
Yeah.
To calm people down.
No, that happens. Now I'm like, I didn't know that dogs and trainers had to go through so much just to become like a therapy dog.
It's a lot, yeah. So there's a difference between a therapy dog and an emotional support animal, right? So
Right.
an emotional support animal actually technically doesn't need to go through any training, because that's also different than a service dog.
Yep.
Yes.
And so so I will own that, Lego went through a lot to get his certification,
Wow.
and I appreciate him that much more for it. So
Yeah, it's like there's also just to throw this in there because you see service dogs pretty frequent amount at conventions, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Please don't ever like go up and pet them and distract
Oh,
them.
God.
Like they are working. They are doing their job at that moment in time. Like if the owner wants them to be pet, they will let you know.
right, yeah, it's actually been. When
It
we
could
were in
really-
middle school, I was surprised at the amount of people who actually asked to pet Lego. He had his therapy dog vest on, but a lot of people thought he was a service dog, and I was like, that's actually really good. That's the protocol, right?
Yeah.
So like always
Yeah.
ask. But the fact is that like the difference between Lego and a service animal is that he is there to be pet. Always ask
Right.
first. But therapy dogs are meant to be pet. That's their job.
It's a pretty good rule for dogs in
It is.
general.
Yeah, I
Like
don't
ask
see
first, but
Yeah.
Just because I find that I think it's really rude to just go up to another person's like pet and pet it without your permission because that person doesn't know you. You don't know what they're dealing with, or what they have to
Yeah.
be going to do, whether they're in a rush or not.
I mean, a service dog, honestly, you shouldn't even ask if you could pet it. Like the
Right.
owner will just let people know if the dog is not working at that moment and can be pet. Like you could throw off their whole day.
Yeah. Go dogs.
Good dogs. Dogs are the best things on earth. We don't deserve them.
Yeah,
Uh,
You don't deserve
dog
them, but I'm
gets
glad
to
we
be.
have them.
Yeah.
we don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I did to deserve 3 dogs, but they're all really soft and cute.
I don't have a dog. I have a cat. But
You deserve a dog, but I mean, I'm not anti-cat. I just really like dogs.
my cat is very, very friendly. Like he's friends with all of my friends. He
Yeah,
loves
I-
Well, that's good
everybody.
then.
I met your
Good.
cat.
He
He's a
likes
good
me.
cat.
Good cat.
Ah,
He loves the exterminator in our building, and we've had 3, and all of them he's made friends with. He's a precious little smoosh, and I guess he knows I'm talking about him because he just got up and like looked at me because he was asleep. Remus, my little Harry Potter cat.
Hey Danielle, what's your Instagram for your dog?
Marauders mutts.
Cool. Legos is at Lego Lepup, so LEGOLEPUP.
We can
To
tag it
follow.
on when we make a post on Instagram and Facebook. I don't know if show notes are a thing because I don't actually even know what show notes are, but I hear other podcasts talk about show notes. So Jenny can always put them in show notes.
I've been juggling the idea of getting an Instagram for my cat, but it's hard to photograph a black cat because they just look like a black cutout,
Also,
no matter what
lighting-
surface you put them on.
the lighting in your apartment is not great.
No, I'll take pictures of him against my pink wall. My
Oh,
pink room.
I mean, not every single picture. Can you imagine?
yes, every single picture.
Right?
Yes.
The theme
That'll
is that-
be the backdrop.
It'll be
of my
like a little
black cat.
silhouette, like running
Yeah.
along a pink wall. It'll be
Oh my
cute.
God, it'd be so cute.
Yeah, I didn't have an Instagram for my adult dog until I got the puppies, and it was just a matter of time though, because I talk about Nort so obsessively
Yeah.
much on.
He's
my
a good
Facebook,
cat.
but-
He's a good baby though. He's good.
Oh, he is. He is. I mean, you were talking about like pulling ears and pulling ears and tails and stuff. Like, I made sure that since he was a little baby, I was pulling his ears and his tail and kissing his face a bunch. That way, in case any little kids ever did that, he wouldn't
Yeah.
snap at them.
Yeah, me too. My cat is great with loves children. My cousin comes over. She's been coming and being with my cat for as long. I've had my cat 7 years now, and I've been living back home in the city for like last 5. And she's just always been around him since she was like 5 years old, and loves this cat. And she's always like all up in him, all up in the
That's so
cat's business.
I think
and he doesn't
also-
react.
Animals like know that they can't treat children the same way as adults.
Yes.
Which is kind of wild. Like
That's good.
I foster cats often, and
Yeah, I love the pictures.
yeah, I don't have anyone right now. Thank goodness. I'm a little bit tired, but our last crew, like none of them went to homes with children, but I did have a pair that went, and they were feisty, but with the kids, they knew like this little 4-year-old girl was going to be picking him up and carrying him around. And I was like, does he show any aggression with her? And, their new mom was like, no, not at all. He knows he's got to put up with it.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
For adults.
I think that it's the sweetest animals and young children.
Yeah, they know.
So I can't hear you while you're crying through your hand.
They're so cute. Animals and little ones.
Yeah, my niece was my nephew and niece were just here, but my niece is like 2 years old and she's obsessed with Nort.
Oh.
So she just wants like kiss and hug and cuddle with him the whole time she's here.
That's awesome.
And it's my favorite thing in the freaking universe.
Yeah, one of my younger sisters, she's 5 now, but she's been to my apartment and she's effectively, sadly, afraid of my cat. And my cat, all he wants to do is love her, and he understands that she is kind of scared and not used to being around animals and likes to give her the space to get acclimated with him.
See,
which is
it's
really
amazing.
Nice.
They're amazing.
Animals, we don't deserve them.
Mm-hmm.
Rose, let's cut this dog and cat tangent for a moment. As upsetting as that makes me, do you have any helpful numbers or websites or anything if anyone wants more information on just like anxiety or health education or just anything in general?
Yeah.
Jenny and I talked about this briefly beforehand because I was like, I've got this app that I use every day. So it's a little bit, it's kind of what you make of it. So it's called Daylio, Daylio, and it's a free app. You can pay like $3 to get it with no ads, which, could be worth it. I actually did pay once I started using it. I usually go through a trial period of like, am I actually going to use this app? And then if I am going to actually use that, I'm okay giving them money. In the same way, like small businesses, like if I'm actually going to use a product, I'm going to send them money. You know what I mean? And so it's called Daylio. And what it basically does is once a day, it prompts you to put in your mood for the day and what activities you did. And then you can also free write. I choose probably not to free write unless something like happens in particular. So I use it as a mood tracker more than anything else. And what it's helped me realize is it gives you monthly statistics and then actually yearly statistics as well. And what I've realized is that Tuesdays are my worst day. And Saturdays will be my best day. And so I have almost a year's worth of data now, and I find it incredibly helpful for just sort of judging how my own cycles run, just in terms of mood, right? And so I find that I'll have 2 weeks where I'm feeling up and very, very productive, and 2 weeks where I kind of get nothing done. And so one of the things that I'm working on now is when I recognize that I'm in that productive cycle, what can I do to put in place for when I'm not feeling productive? That means I'm not 0% productive during those 2 weeks. So putting things into place, one of the things I've been thinking about is like social media. I've really hated social media recently. And so maybe on my up cycles, scheduling a few posts for my down cycle so that way they automatically post. So that way content is still coming out without, me having to really think about it when I'm not feeling in a good place for it. So Daylio is my fave.
So it sounds like Tuesdays are the days you need to bring Lego to work with you.
Yeah, he's supposed to come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, hopefully, if everything works out. And I also have therapy on Tuesdays. So
nice.
It's a good end cap to what is usually a pretty crappy day. So
sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not that Tuesdays I have therapy and I feel like crap at therapy, but it's really helpful.
By the end of the day, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. We know how therapy works.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone does.
I always like the times that you don't want to go to therapy, like the times when you're like, last thing I want to do is go to therapy today. Those are the days you should go.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Because you don't always have to talk about some horribly traumatic thing that happened. Like therapy is just supposed to be updating about your week, essentially.
Yeah, and talking through things. I do a lot of talking through things and what happened and what I'm thinking about doing in the next week. It's a little bit of outside accountability too, which I like.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming to me.
Thanks. We're not done, but but I appreciate you and I love having you on. So we have like a little geek sesh thing that we're doing every week.
Mhm.
I told you we were watching Sorry to Bother You, which you haven't seen
Nope.
yet, right?
You haven't seen it?
No.
Okay.
I'll just chill while you guys talk. You know what I mean? Like I can go get Jenny and I like coffee and breakfast.
Okay. Yeah. But I hope you watched it.
Bye.
Yes, bye.
Thanks for being on. So yeah, we're having a geek sesh. There's gonna be spoilers. It's for Sorry to Bother You.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched it
Does that-
last night when I got home.
Yeah, I watched. It is absolutely amazing. Do either of you guys want to give like a summary of it? I'm very bad at summarizing things without just like spoiling the whole the plot.
Well, do we not want to spoil the
No,
whole
no, no,
plot?
no. We can. I'm just still bad at summarizing things.
I think someone else should because
I can do it. 'cause
Yeah,
I know. I was really looking at you, Jenny.
Well, okay, so basically it's a dark comedy about a man named Cassius Green who starts a new job in a telemarketing firm, and he uses his white voice to kind of go up the ranks.
Yep.
And like he discovers kind of like the shady shit that's going on behind the scenes, and it pivots real hard into science fiction like midway
Yeah.
through.
I forgot that it's a science fiction movie, and I was like, "What is happening?"
Mhm. It's probably one of the most disturbing pivots I've seen, but it does pivot. And so it's like a social commentary about race and capitalism,
Mhm.
which I enjoyed. What do you guys think?
I loved it. It made me super uncomfortable the entire time I was watching it, which I
Mhm.
think it should, because I think white people should be uncomfortable more often. I've never seen a movie that intersected race and capitalism quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
What do you
it was
think, Arkeida?
so good.
I didn't love it. I mean, I didn't dislike it.
Okay.
I enjoyed the film. I thought it touched upon a lot of like issues between race and capitalism that I've already like seen in the world and know, and not that I understand how it happens, but I know that it's happening. I spent a lot of the movie confused because I don't usually watch a lot of commentary on like the society we live in. I tend to not watch those, so this was something new for me, and I didn't know what to expect going into it, because from watching the trailers and then finally seeing what it was actually about, I was like, oh my god, this is completely different than what I was expecting.
I didn't even watch a trailer. I just went in cold.
Yeah. I had watched trailers of it from when I was going to some movies this summer. It would come on, and I just thought it would be like a I knew it was like social commentary, but I thought it was just going to be social commentary on how people of color, specifically Black people, kind of navigate a work environment. It went like a completely different turn,
Mm-hmm.
which I just...
So I'm kind of in between where I thought it was funny. There's some moments in it that were hilarious. I thought, like, for example, when him and the main character Cassius and his friend were having that aggressive
Oh my god,
compliment battle.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was adorable.
And it's like, is it gonna escalate into fighting? No, it's not. They're complimenting each other still.
I hope you have a good week.
Yeah. Well, I hope I want to raise you up, and like super aggressively.
You smell good.
Yeah, that was good. And it's so anti-capitalist, which I love, because I feel like,
I mean,
but
it literally is about how capitalism turns people into workhorses.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, and like metaphorically, sure, but also literally in this movie.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, that CGI freaked me the fuck
did.
out.
I watched that at night. Last night.
I wanted to warn you guys, but also I didn't want to spoil.
No.
I'm glad you didn't warn us, because it made me super uncomfortable.
Right. It was almost traumatic to me personally.
Yes.
Like, it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
But, like,
I had to rewind it a couple of times.
Which I guess they want you to do, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I just thought it was like a genius. I don't know, like the fact that he had to use a white people voice to be able to get ahead in this company and to be able to make sales is like so telling about what our country is actually like.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
depressing as hell.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have my own white people voice as well because I am Caribbean American and I'm Black. No,
God, that hurts me.
I know.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
I feel as though that I've been at my job now long enough that people don't care how I speak. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But
that should not matter at all.
It shouldn't matter.
I'm
but
so
when
sorry.
When I go on interviews, I have to change my. Sometimes I'll even go as far as like straightening my hair for interviews, which I don't have straight hair. But yeah, I kind of changed my entire demeanor to be a little bit more like accepting and presentable to the industry, which is predominantly white and white women, and they they want the diversity, but they don't want what comes with diversity, unfortunately. I have my white voice. It's
when I say I love that when I say I love that movie, I mean I think it was like brilliantly written.
Yeah.
Right. I think like I don't love what's happening in that movie.
Obviously.
I hate what's happening in that movie, but I mean other than Tessa's earrings, which are
oh my gosh,
Tessa Thompson's earrings are.
I have a friend that has them, and I'm just like, please send me the links. Like,
which ones?
The Kill Murder.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
they're all
great. I loved her character Detroit though in this. Like she stood for what she believed in, even though some parts of it were a little like her art show.
I don't understand art.
Yeah, I think
art is subjective.
And when she was doing that art show, she was using white people voice, so I wonder if that art project was like part of that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of layers to it that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And I saw that Lily Collins was her white people voice. Like it was a different recording. Her white voice was portrayed by Lily Collins. But my white voice is me. I'm sorry. I'm saying, and then stop saying sorry.
No, yeah, don't.
I mean, you can say sorry as much as I apologize for telling you to stop saying sorry. I know that's an anxiety thing, and I should not be telling you to stop saying sorry.
No, you should.
I just personally don't think that you have anything to say sorry for.
Yeah, no, I feel.
Yeah, they also talked about how Cassius was a whitish kind of black guy,
right?
Yeah, which is super offensive.
That is.
Well,
yeah,
they're not white black people.
No, that's
within the black community, there is kind of like elements of that. Right?
Yes, I grew up with that. Unfortunately, I grew up being called white, or I talk white, or I act white for liking things that weren't stereotypically of the Black or African American assortment or of the Caribbean assortment, because my family is Caribbean, and because I didn't like soca music as much, or because I wanted to go out and eat sushi. They're like, that's so white. And I'm just like, I'm just being me, and there's no single definition on how to be black or how to be a person of color. Like, you can have several interests and still be who you are. And sometimes it still bothers me because my sisters do it to me still. And I know they're into some of the same things that I am. But what bothers me is like, at the end of the day, if I get pulled over by the cops, I'm still black to them, no matter how I talk, no matter how I present myself, no matter what level of education I have. Like, that, I feel like that is a problematic thing within like the Black and African American community, is understanding that there is no one right way to be black, and to call somebody white just for having different interests, it's detrimental to their mental health. And that's something that I've kind of had to overcome a lot, and still am.
I'm sorry that you deal with that. We're definitely gonna have a whole episode on how problematic it is, that like white people will refer to some black people as like a black white person.
Don't call us Oreos. Don't call us Oreos.
Holy shit.
That's a thing. That is
people I can banana.
What?
Oh, dear.
Yellow on the outside, one on the inside.
I've never heard of that.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
So
This podcast is
cringy.
just going to be me apologizing on behalf of fucking stupid white people. So sorry.
Wow.
To the movie though.
Yes. The movie.
There were some surprise people I didn't know were in the movie, like Steven Yeun and Armie Hammer, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Steven, I think, did a really good job. But Squeeze, what a name.
Squeeze, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a name. That's a real name.
He was hilarious.
He's kind of like the practical, like, this is what you
Yes.
actually do in the real world kind of person, you know,
Mhm.
which I liked. And Armie is very good at playing the privileged white CEO.
Oh, Steve Lift. Yeah.
Oh my
I
god!
said
The first time
that.
he was on the screen, I laughed out loud. I was like, "What is this guy?"
But that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of CEOs talk and behave and see it as like they're really helping the world when it's not. It's kind of like more harmful in a way, and you're taking away
Mhm.
people's rights and like freedom.
Not just in a way. It is.
And it is. Yes, it is. That yeah,
Dehuman-
that's
If you're dehumanizing people, it's pretty.
they're literally dehumanizing people. They are no longer humans. They were they Equisapiens?
Yeah. Thank you, Equisapiens.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry for anyone that we ruined this like twist in the movie for,
Yes.
but it's fucking crazy.
I do
Yeah,
apologize
it's
for that.
crazy.
Please, yeah, even though I didn't enjoy it, just because I don't watch films like this as much, I did get a lot that I did. There was a lot of takeaway from it, and I would recommend to still watch it, even if you're not like a social commentary like movie watcher. Like, still watch
Right.
it. Please.
What I wanted more of actually was the kind of before it became even science fiction at all. There was like really I don't know if it's called magic realism or what, but like there'd be moments where, for example, as a telemarketer, he would drop into someone's living room.
Oh, that was so cool.
Yeah, that was.
And like when he started getting money again, well, in general, I don't know if
Yeah.
money in general, and he moved to a much better place. His like he and I forgot Tessa's character's name. Detroit, were they're making out in bed, and then around
Yes.
them the apartment just became a much more high upscale apartment, which like
The world was
Like-
changing around them, literally.
right,
Like,
which I loved. I wish there were more elements like that, because that was what was in the trailers as
Yeah.
well, and I want to see more of that cool film aspect of it.
What my biggest takeaway from the film was for Cassius, and for anyone who doesn't know, Cassius was the birth name for Muhammad Ali. For anyone,
Oh my
His-
god! Okay.
yeah, that's when I watched this, I was like, wait, is his last name going to be Clay too? But it was Green, Cassius Green, not Cassius Clay. But one of my biggest takeaways, it was like what he was faced with when he got the promotion and being a Black male or a Black person in that role, where his friends are protesting the company, but he has a duty to his family at the moment
Yeah.
to be the breadwinner and to make money and to be able to provide for them. And that's one of the things that's really hard about being a Black person working in a predominantly white environment, is the things you kind of have to subject yourself to in order to be able to provide, even though it might not be the healthiest environment. And you can't necessarily speak up about it, one, because you don't want to put your income at risk, and then two, because when you're a person of color or Black and you're working in a predominantly white environment, no one's going to have the same social understandings of the things that you have to deal with within the company and within like your daily interactions and how you're talking to and dealing with all these people. That's not, yeah. I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, that's what I took away from it.
stressful.
Yeah.
It was, I felt stressed out the whole time, and it doesn't even affect me technically. I'm a white privileged woman. I was just like stressed out and uncomfortable the whole time, like thinking about what he has to go through and the fact that, you know, there's a big portion of the movie where he has to be villainized
Yeah.
for like choosing to make money, essentially.
Yeah, and it's specifically talking about the Black experience, but it can kind of you can talk about it can kind of extend to the Latina or Latino experience as well.
Right,
and, but yeah, you can't help but be empathetic.
If you watch that movie and you aren't empathetic and you aren't at least a little bit uncomfortable, like I don't know how to feel about you anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought it was an important movie to watch.
I think so too. Like I don't know. I'm really happy you suggested it personally.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. It was on my list of things to watch, but it was one of those I need to watch something new and then put on Bob's Burgers for like the 50th time.
It's so easy to rewatch the stuff you know you love.
Yeah. I find myself often just like mouthing along to the show because I know it word for word now. All of it. It's so, yeah, being able to watch something new and experience it for the first time, that, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. So I hope you guys check it out.
Yes.
And thanks for listening to us.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, subscribe, review, and rate us. Our social medias are at Fandom and Wellness on Instagram.
Fandom and Wellness on Facebook.
And Fandom Wellness on Twitter.
So remember, be kind and take no shit.
Bye.
Bye.